from the creator of Cable, X-Force, Domino, Image Comics, and of course, Deadpool. Introducing Rob Liefeld.
Oh, hello there. I bet you're wondering why the red suit. Well, that's so bad guys can't see me bleed.
I'm alive! I'm alive!
All right, thank you everybody. And now coming to the stage, Deadpool's daddy, Rob Liefeld. It's working. Hey, thank you for taking an hour out of your day to come visit with me. Hopefully I'll talk your ear off and you'll have some fun while you're here. I'm going to tell you, my wife and I were married 20 years ago in July, and first thing we did, thank you very much, thank you, we love her to death, she's great, she'll be helping me out at the booth, please be nice to her. The thing is, we went to Kauai for a week, and then we jumped shuttle and we went to Maui for a week, and then the next year we went back to Kauai, we went back to Maui, and then in 2009 and 2010 we took our family, 3 kids, and we went to just Maui, and then we went back to Maui. And I've never been to Oahu, Honolulu, any of this, and I'm going to tell you, this island is fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, what a great, I'm like, why did we never go here? And you guys have been so nice the 3 days I've been here. I always start out a little bit about myself. I'll do it a little differently than I did yesterday, but we'll get some information in there. I have been privileged to write and draw comic books for 29 years this year. It is my absolute delight. It is my favorite thing in the world. I tell people all the time, I will take a good comic book over a movie any day, and that's just where my preference lies. I love movies, I love television, I watch way too much of both. But it's my comic books that I go back and I revisit time and again and over, and it's that imagination and those characters that have just resonated with me over the years. I was really fortunate out of high school, as I tell people very honestly, and I said it yesterday, I'll reiterate it, I knew, you know, like you kind of know in high school, when you're a teenager, like, does your skill set lend you to being a surgeon? My box was no. Does it lend you to being a lawyer? My box is no. It actually comes back to, do you get good grades, Rob Liefeld? No. My teachers would always tell me, and I got notes sent home, tell Rob to stop drawing on his algebra test, on his English homework, on his, because man, every time I was in school, I was just practicing to be a comic book artist. I was like, oh, there's margins on this test. Let me do some layouts. Oh, there's some margins. So I was always drawing, and my dad was a Baptist minister, and my grandfather was a Baptist minister, different story than yesterday. They put hymnals in churches. And I was often bored at my grandfather's sermons, as most kids are bored by sermons, but the hymnals in the back had blank pages. And I would draw comic books in those until one day I felt someone tugging on my ear. And you know, every church has the oldest lady, the absolute oldest lady that goes to church with the blue hair. And my old lady with the blue hair, I won't say her name, she said, Robbie, don't you draw those hymnals? Why am I telling you this? When Youngblood #1 sold 1 million copies and it was in the LA Times, my friends who so into the church said, and they knew I went there, my friends said they went there and all the hymnals were gone. They stole those hymnals, or they took them. So there's somewhere people have hymnals with my comic books as a teenagers in the back, and I would have done more, but that lady pinched my ear so hard. But I was always preparing to be a comic book artist, and I was very thankful to break in when I was 18 years old. I went on a road trip up to San Francisco. Marvel Comics was the only, the biggest company was the only company that would look at my submission. And as I have said before, Mark Grunwald rose up behind the table, shook my hand after I was like, what's going on here? And he was quiet, and he looked at my pages, and he welcomed me to Marvel Comics. And I was so thrilled, I couldn't believe. I had a 6-hour drive home, and my witness to this, as I said yesterday, because it's funny who your friends are, if you look at every single DC comic, inside every single DC comic is the name Hank Canals, K-A-N-A-L-Z. Hank and I were teenage buddies. We drove up to San Francisco for the very first WonderCon, and that's where this happened. So he was my witness, and without him pushing me, so if you don't like my work, blame Hank, write him, say, Hank, why did you push Rob to go stand in that Marvel Comics line? But I was fortunate to do some work at DC Comics, and that got the notice. Marvel gave me some small short stories, but DC gave me like a mini series. And as I joked yesterday, I knew a couple of my buddies, and they said, oh yeah, I was offered Hawk and Dove, but yeah, I turned it down, it didn't interest me. But when I grew up, I was a huge Teen Titans fan. And before George Perez remade the Teen Titans, the version prior to the 1980s version, because I was a 70s kid, had Hawk and Dove in it. And I always thought Hawk and Dove, they were these two cool characters. And you know, yeah, they dress up like birds, that's weird, but I thought I could do something cool with them. And so I was able to get my break with Hawk and Dove and get into the industry, and then I got called by the X office, and as I have always reiterated, in 1988-87, the X-Men books were the top-selling books in the industry. Everybody who got into the industry wanted to draw Wolverine or the X-Men. And so I was excited that I was able to do I did some scattered issues of X-Men, X-Factor, and they originally offered me X-Factor, which, if you don't know, X-Factor was the 5 original X-Men. Now, I'm going to draw comparisons to the 5 original X-Men, because most people don't know that the original X-Men series was canceled. The original X-Men series was in reprints. If you were a kid in the 70s and you went to the corner store, and I had 3 corner stores, all on my block, which would contributed to my addiction to comic books, the X-Men, if you picked it up, it would be a reprint of a couple years ago. And for 3 years, the X-Men, they just kept it going and kept it going. And if you don't know history, that is a historical fact. Until one day, they put out Giant Size X-Men #1, and that introduced Wolverine, Storm, Colossus, and the X-Men that we all know now. And then that kind of took off and got popular over time, and then exploded into the biggest franchise. The original X-Men, you know, I've joked about this. The guy who headed Marvel Comics in the 90s, when he hired me to do the Avengers and Captain America, he said, Liefeld, his name's Avi Arad. You see his name on a lot of the Marvel movies, some of the not very good Marvel movies. But Avi was championing them in the beginning. I'm very honest. I just, you know, some of his tastes aren't very good. And so I guess that, you know, throws some shade on me, hired me. But when I first created X-Force, which was Cable and Domino and Shatterstar and Warpath, and I was very fortunate, young kids out there, when you can't draw Wolverine, and they say, well, we already got people to draw Wolverine, make up your own characters. Now, I'm going to go back to the original X-Men. The original X-Men were in reprints because they were boring. They are boring characters to a child. The original X-Men, I will now enact their powers. Cyclops has his visor, and he did this. He points at you with his head. And then Jean Grey would do the dramatic fingers to the temple, telekinesis. Professor Xavier would also fingers to the temple. Angel would fly in with his mighty wings. As a kid, I'm like, really? That's all he does? He flaps his wings like a bird? And then Beast would bounce around, and then Iceman had the only really cool powers. Why am I dissing the X-Men? Okay, my favorite comic growing up was The Avengers. And it was not lost on me why I loved the Avengers. And I'm going to get back to the Avi Arad here. I'm going to thread all this together. You're going to go, where's he going with this? The Avengers, everybody had a weapon. Thor has a hammer, and he would hit people with that hammer. And I loved it. And he would throw the hammer, and the hammer would come back to me. You're like, this is awesome. Hawkeye had bows and arrows, and he would fire arrows at you, and they would stick in you or explode. Cap had a shield. I think Cap is the only person ever who threw his shield. Now we see like King Leonidas does it in 300, but Cap did it first, and it comes back to him. Then you had kids, if you're too young, there was a character in the Avengers called the Swordsman, and he had a sword. And if you go down the list, even Hercules, when he was in the Avengers, he had a big golden mallet, and he would bash your head. The Avengers had weapons. They were cool. I was a weapons guy. I loved G.I. Joe. I loved all that. So when they let me into the X-Men office, it was not lost on me that the X-Men's popularity turned when they stopped pointing their heads with their temples, and a guy walked through the door with 6 knives, 3 out of each hand, and he would stick you with them and gut you like a pig. And my 9-year-old self was so thrilled by Wolverine, and to this day, my kids ask me all the time, and I'm like, stop asking me, it's not going to change. Dad, who's your favorite comic book character? Wolverine, period, end of story, always. And again, I thought, you know, I love that he had the weapons, that he had the knives. So if you ever wonder why Rob Liefeld characters have guns and swords and shoulder pads and katanas, I guess that's also a sword, and throwing knives like Domino, and guns as big as refrigerators, it's because I like gear. And gear and weapons, I think, make people happy. And the bigger the gun, the bigger the knife, the bigger the sword is fun to draw. Because I always, there was a guy drawing Punisher when I broke in, and he showed me how proud he was to draw realistic guns, and he pulled into his suitcase and he put all these guns and ammo magazines on the table at the convention. He goes, yeah, this is my reference. I'm like, shoot me with one of those guns. If I have to draw a reference, I'll jump off a cliff. So if you've ever wondered why Cable lifted guns that looks completely made up, and I believe when he appears on screen, he will have some pretty cool guns that look like someone made them up. It's because I'm not drawing that reference. I'm like Jack Kirby, like, why would I draw something real when I can make it up? And comics gave me that outlet, and thankfully you guys bought New Mutants and took it from a comic that was selling 100,000 to the last issue of New Mutants. We canceled it so we could restart it as X-Force, but then that last issue of New Mutants is the best-selling last issue ever of all time. So that's a cool, like statistic. The best-selling last issue of all time. It sold 1 million copies. We went back to press 4 times. And again, now the New Mutants had characters with swords and guns and all this. And along came, in that mix, my first issue of New Mutants that they let me write featured Deadpool, Domino, and my friend Gideon with the green ponytail, and he didn't click as well as Domino and Deadpool. But my whole approach when I introduced Deadpool was we had really built up New Mutants and X-Force into a cool team, and it was who can come in there and take the entire team down. Because whenever I read comics, when the villain came in and took the whole team down, people really responded to that. So I'm like, I'm gonna have Deadpool come in, and he's gonna single-handedly take the entire New Mutants and Cable out. And we were welcomed, Deadpool was welcomed with the most mail that Marvel had ever received on a character in about 15 years. And they sent me the box of mail, which was, came up to about here. I thought they sent me a washing machine, like I said yesterday. I had never gotten a box like that. And my editor called me and said, Rob, we need more Deadpool. The mail on Deadpool is off the hook. And so as he has always been, he has been fueled by your love, your affection, and your interest in him. And my kids go, Dad, there's a lot of Deadpool stuff at Hot Topic. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's because it sells. There's not a lot of Deadpool stuff at these stores if they don't sell. And Deadpool continues to be the little engine that could, and he is going to usher in, I think, the entire age of all those comics I did onto the screen. And I hear people, I read about people sometimes, and they talk about the 90s like the 90s weren't the best thing that ever happened to comics. And if you were in the 90s, you know that the 90s were awesome. But like around the 2000s, all the little hipster dudes with their little, blame the Matrix, 1999, I remember the early 2000s, I would go to the market, and I'm like, oh no, kids with long black, what are those called, coats? Trench coats. The trench coat kids who weren't around to read the 90s comics and decided the 90s comics weren't cool. And I was like, screw you. We connected. I've seen all your faces over all these 50 states, and I've met all of you guys, and you guys love those comics. Todd's comics, Jim's comics, my comics, Image Comics. And so that era is coming to screen. One thing about Deadpool that's cool is that he is the first, in my mind, Iron Man in 2008 reset the clock. It reset the clock and on comic movies and made them cooler. And there hasn't been a 90s character since then. It's all, God bless him, been Stan Lee's characters. Stan and Jack Kirby's creations have been the ones that are on screen. But I think Deadpool is going to usher in a new era. To wrap up the Avi Arad, Avi met with me. They had already made like 15 Cable figures, 15 X-Force lines, and he said, I like you, Rob. It looks like this, I like you. I was very nervous. He's very big man, looks like the Kingpin, with a goatee. And I'm in his offices in Marvel Comics in Los Angeles, and he says, I like you. And I said, oh, thank you, Avi. I like you too. Thanks for letting me do this. And he goes, you get hardware with software. I like you. And to this day, I was like, I think I know what you mean by hardware with software. If software is the character, if software is the characters, hardware is all the gear. The swords, the guns. Because if you bought Cable action figures or Deadpool action figures in the 90s from Marvel, they came, there was Aqua Cable, there was Arctic Cable, there was Space Cable. They literally turned him into G.I. Joe, which was cool because he was influenced by G.I. Joe. But, so yeah, Avi Arad, to this day, he really kind of, our meeting was over after he said, I like you. Hardware, software. And I was like, okay, thanks, nice meeting you. Yes, good toys, good toys. And I was like, wait, I do comics, I don't do toys. Gives you kind of an insight to where they were thinking. Now here's the deal. What I do from here is I open it up to you guys, because I got a lot of stories. I've seen a lot of things. I know where all the bodies are buried in comics. I've run off of my mouth. If you want to ask me stuff, you raise your hand, I will come to you. I will then answer the question for everybody. But like I said, X-Force New Mutants led to Image Comics, Youngblood, Brigade, Supreme. Image Comics led to guys like Robert Kirkman, who is a good buddy of mine, who I could not be more thrilled that he has the #1 show on television and that he is a fantastic force. Hi Deadpool, how are you doing? You know, Image Comics was a cool movement, and I love every time I see that they're the #3 comics publisher. For you kids who don't know, when we started Image, in our 3rd month of publication, we outsold DC Comics with 6 comic books. Go back, also historical fact, August 1992, Image Comics was the #2 comic company. And if you don't think that didn't send a lightning bolt up DC's butt, because they had a meeting shortly after and said, how do we compete with these Image guys? And then somebody showed up and said, we killed Superman! And then they got into the game, they started selling more comics when they killed Superman, so I always joke that Image Comics killed Superman, and that is a fact! So yeah, that's a fun factoid. All right, who's got a question? And we'll start getting this rolling. I'm coming to you.